Hi everyone, I'm Kate, the Almost Book Doctor, and welcome to my channel. Tonight I'm going to be doing a book review on Anatomy, a Love Story by Dana Schwartz. And so this is a YA historical fiction romance, which I loved a lot. I gave this book 4 stars on Goodreads, probably about 4.5. It was really good. There are a couple plot points that I didn't quite love, but I really enjoyed this book a lot. As you can probably tell, like, I had to pick it up because it has to do with medicine, and her dress makes this beautiful, like, anatomically correct heart on the cover, and then when you take off the jacket, so this is a little Frankenstein-y thing I did. My original cover had an awful, gross sticker on it that wouldn't come off. And so a friend of mine traded her unstickered cover for mine. And so she has a different hardcover, which is kind of cool. And so mine has this beautiful, shiny, anatomical heart on it. And her book is black and has scalpels crossed, which I thought was really cool. So in this story, we follow Hazel, who's a 16-year-old girl. She is in the upper echelons of aristocracy in the late 1800s outside of Edinburgh, Scotland. I might have said that wrong. I'm so sorry, my Scottish friends. She is getting ready to be betrothed to somebody that her family has picked out, but she doesn't really care about that because all she wants to do with her life is to become a surgeon. And not only in this time were women not allowed to be involved in medicine, they were definitely not allowed to be surgeons because surgeons were looked down upon. So physicians were like a job for the upper class men. They were well respected in society, whereas surgeons were basically glorified butchers. It was dirty, it was rough. They didn't have the tools to perform surgery the way that we do now. They certainly didn't understand sterile technique. Like, it was a rough job. But that's what she wanted to do. So in this story, she finds out that one of the most well-respected surgeons in the country is doing like a showcase downtown. And so she goes and she watches him perform surgery while she's like hidden, all dressed up like her brother, and decides that she's going to enter into his anatomy class. And at the end of that class, she will take a test, and that will allow her to become a surgeon if she passes. And in her mind, if she passes, they can't tell her no, right? So she ends up doing this class. She does very well for part of the class, and then she gets caught. Shocker. So when she gets caught, she goes to the professor and she begs him, please, is there anything you can do? I want to learn. And he says, well, I can't teach you. I can't teach you in my class, but I can let you take the exam. And if you take the exam and pass, not only will I let you be my personal apprentice, but I will let women forevermore attend my anatomy classes. And she's like, whoa, okay, cool. Like, this is high stakes. And the issue for her is that she doesn't have any bodies and she doesn't have any way to practice. And so she meets a boy named Jack. And so Jack is a resurrection man, and a resurrection man is a grave robber. They dig up bodies and sell them to academic institutions or individual people for practice for surgery and medicine and all sorts of other things. Ugh. But that's what he does for a living, and it's very hush-hush. And so she makes a deal with him, and he provides her with bodies to study from. And while this is all happening, people start disappearing. There's murder afoot. And so we go from there. It's part murder mystery, it's part, feminist in medicine, science, like, part to it. I loved this story. I felt like it was perfect for me because I love murder mysteries and stuff. And it has a bit of the ambiance being in the late 1800s. I love Hazel. She's spunky, she's funny, she is able to quip back at Jack. I really liked their dialogue with each other. It felt real. It didn't feel contrived. She has faults. She does the wrong things sometimes, but she doesn't let those get in the way of the things that she loves and the things that she cares about and like her goals and reasons why she does things. And the way that they showed her like pushing back on how society is coming at her and like forcing her and pigeonholing her in one direction, I felt like that was pretty realistic too, because she had very like emotional reactions to that. It has the the cute, perfect romance, I think. It's really like tongue-in-cheek. I love the way that they, you know, interact with each other and how they talk with each other. There's no like insta love. There's no enemies to lovers thing. There's lots of respect involved, which I thought was great. And it wasn't like one of those bodice ripper type things either. So it was just sweet but deep. It truly is a love story, even though it's wrapped up in all of this like macabre sort of atmosphere. And because of the morbid like background for the whole story, it really has this great juxtaposition between the like blossoming romance and the fact that they're like always digging up graves and she's like digging around in dead bodies and stuff. I loved that. It was just so fun. I feel like this would be a great book to read around Halloween. Obviously I didn't do that. I read it as soon as it came out, but if I were to reread it, I would definitely read it around Halloween because it just has vibes, you know? And it's not super spooky vibes, but it's that kind of chill in the air kind of story. On top of like the chilly vibes that I was talking about, it also, because of the way that there's like the classes and stuff and how it has to do with medical academia, it does have a bit of a dark academia feel. Not as much as some other things like the Atlas 6, but it does kind of check that box for me a little bit. As far as like YA goes, I think it did a good job of that. It's just very atmospheric at some points. I really loved Hazel. Not only is she plucky and fun and all those other things I said, she doesn't want to lose herself in society. She doesn't want to let them pigeonhole her into what her mom and the rest of conventional society thinks she should be. She doesn't let herself get lost. She pushes herself towards her goals, which I loved. But it's not in a really overly, like, I'm not like the other girls way. I feel like it makes sense in the story, and it didn't seem disingenuine to me. When it is kind of, I'm just not like the other girls, for me personally, like, it makes me feel yicky, and I didn't feel that in the story. And not only does she love science, but she also loves to read. And I just have to read this one quote from her because I feel like all of you bookworms will just love Hazel once you hear her say this. This is just, oh, I laughed so hard when I read this part in the book. Oh, I love it so much. She's talking to her lady's maid about going out into the gardens and bringing something to read with her. And her lady's maid is like, oh, okay, well, like, maybe you can just bring one book with you to the garden to read, because, like, you're only going to be there for one afternoon. And Hazel says, one book? One book? Now you're being absurd. What if I finish it? Or what if I find it impossibly dull? What then? What am I supposed to read if I either complete the book I bought, or I otherwise discover it to be unreadable? Or what if it no longer holds my attention? Someone could spill tea on it. There, think of that. Someone could spill tea on my one book, and then I would be marooned. I read that, I was like, girl, me too. Hello. Guest starring my dog. I was like, girl, I get you. I feel you. Like, she's just, oh, she's so fun and wonderful. And I can relate to her drive to be a surgeon, her drive to be a doctor, her drive to not... Hello. Hello. Can you go lay down? No. Oh. I can really identify with her, like, really wanting to be a surgeon, wanting to be in medicine, and not letting other people tell her that she can't do it for reasons X, Y, and Z that they don't know. They assume of her for nothing other than the fact that she's a woman or has XYZ. Like, I feel like most people who have a dream that they want to obtain, and anyone who stands in their way and tells them, well, but you're like this, so you can't do it, like, you can relate to Hazel. And then Jack is also a wonderful character. He's resilient. That's a good word that I would use to describe him. He's resilient and sweet and just loving. And he's had it rough. The prose in this book is very simple to follow, very easy to read. It's your standard YA fare. I didn't think it was overly descriptive, but it does a good job of talking about the gruesome details in just enough goriness to kind of tickle my fancy for that little tiny sliver of horror that it feels like sometimes. And she doesn't pull punches on like the anatomy stuff, which I enjoyed. I think it was a really great way to write something that's semi-horror-ish for YA. I think that this book could work for anyone in the YA grade, to be honest. I think it could work for someone who is like the middle age of YA to like the new adult YA aspect, just because of the material inside of it. There's no spice, there's nothing of that sort, but it has enough punch to it, I think, to keep, you know, adults entertained as well as like the YA range. I loved this book. I don't really know what else to say about it without ruining it. Like I said, I don't even want to say that. If I were to say anything else about the book, I would ruin what I think are the most interesting parts. And so I think I'm going to stop here. But I will say that if you like romance, if you like historical fiction, it's not heavy-handed with the historical fiction. It's like, oh, it's set in this era, so here's where we're gonna, like, it's set where it needs to be. It's at the dawning right before anesthesia is a thing. If you like historical fiction, if you like romance, if you like a little bit of, like, horror and, like, dark academia, but not a ton, and don't want to get scared by things that go bump in the night, like, this might be a good book for you. I thought that the romance was beautiful and well done, and I was impressed with that for this book. Like, I didn't expect it to be done so well. I thought that it would end up being cheesy. I thought that it would end up being predictable. And a few parts, I think, were, like I said, that's probably why I didn't give it a complete 5 stars, because there were a couple things where it's like, oh, you know, yeah, I kind of figured that might happen. But I didn't care because I loved it anyway. And I think that that's more important than whether or not every single thing's a surprise. So I highly recommend Anatomy. I thought it was adorable. I thought it was different. I haven't read anything that was like this in a while. They don't have a lot of like macabre, medical, grave robbing YA books out lately. If you have read this book, comment, let me know, talk to me. I have feelings about the end of the book and I would love to share them with you, but I don't want to put a spoilery sections video because it would be too long. Thank you for watching. Please like, comment, subscribe. I would be ever so grateful, and I hope you guys have a wonderful evening. Bye!